Cheap AI-powered Ukrainian drones have reportedly destroyed over 40 Russian military aircraft deep inside Russian territory in a meticulously planned operation. This dramatic shift in modern warfare echoes Rahul Gandhi's earlier remarks, where he held up a Chinese DJI drone to highlight how AI and drone technology were redefining combat, both in air and sea. He had also criticized India's lack of preparedness compared to China's advancements. His comments had drawn criticism, but the recent Ukrainian strike reinforces his argument that low cost smart drones are transforming the battlefield more decisively than traditional firepower.
And this is actually a toy, right? What we are seeing here is innovative technology of the motor, high quality optics, telecommunication equipment, and essentially a bunch of cell phone batteries set together are allowing this thing to transform the battlefield. Earlier, the Air Force used to operate, let's say, for the most part, above 10,000 feet. And if you wanted, if a local unit, fighting unit wanted air support, they had to call the Air Force, and then the Air Force had to send the plane. And the plane was big, very expensive, etc. So now what has happened is the Air Force has merged with the platoon, right? So now the platoon itself has its own Air Force, can use that Air Force to strike opponents and can observe the battlefield. So what has happened is the Air Force has suddenly come all the way to the ground level, and it's built a completely different reconnaissance concept at a much lower level, which means that the battlefield has become much more transparent. You just put a drone up there and then you can see everything that's going on, and then individual units can send their drones to attack. So it's almost illuminated the battlefield in a way that has never been done before. And it's also allowed kinetic energy to be moved around very effectively and targeted very accurately. And the reason it's happened is because of the electric motor and the battery and optics combination. The optics and communication system are allowing you to see the battlefield, see the sea in a completely different way. And then the electric motor is allowing you to target very, very accurately, put explosive power very accurately where you want. And this has revolutionized how accurately you can target kinetic energy. We have to build such a system. And we have to have competence in electric motors. We have to develop competence in optics. We have to develop competence in batteries. This is what is going to be at the heart of the electric vehicle. This is what's going to be at the heart of all robotics. This is what's going to be at the heart of drones. This is what's going to be at the heart of submarines. This is going to be at the heart of toys, warfare, everything. And the sad fact is that we're nowhere here. We don't make any of the components inside this. We don't understand how it's made. We certainly don't make any of the optics. We don't understand how it's made. And that's what my speech was getting at, that this is actually where we should be playing. And the network that produces this is where the real value is. And all AI is actually going to be operating on this network. So for example, when this thing is built, AI is going to be used to order how it's built. When this thing is used, AI will determine how it's used. The last generation industrial system was about mastering the internal combustion engine. And the tragedy right now is that we're talking about all sorts of stuff, but we're not talking about this. And this is, I want Indian imagination to fly like this thing does. War is always about distribution of kinetic force. Kinetic force kills people. How you get kinetic force to kill people is really what war is. This thing completely revolutionizes how kinetic energy moves on the battlefield. So for example, if you compare this to a bullet can only move in a straight line, right? This can move up, down, left, right, backwards. It can stop in space. If you're comparing this to a tank shell can only move in a straight line. If you're comparing it to a missile can maneuver, but then a missile can't suddenly stop in the middle of the sky. A missile can't maneuver in such a sophisticated, complicated manner, right? So this is literally a revolution. And the interesting thing about this, and this is what I keep telling my American friends, is that this doesn't come from the military system. American drones all come from the military system, meaning they trickle down. This has come from the toy industry, right? This has emerged from the commercial system. And that's really the powerful thing. Because if things are emerging bottom up, then the amount of innovation that will emerge from that is significantly more than if they're going top down, right? So this motor, brushless motor, actually, I first saw it 15, 20 years ago in a remote control plane. This used to be a hobby. This is a hobby I've had for 30, 40 years. And earlier there used to be small engines, very complicated to build, very complicated to fly. And the real innovation was the brushless motor. And then the batteries. Because earlier the batteries were just way too big and the brushless motors were inefficient. The motors were inefficient. And now they're very powerful. They all coordinate. So this is actually a revolution. This is where the technological wave is. Now people think that you can make in India. You can have an Adani Defense or somebody else make in India and you'll get this. You won't. All Adani Defense does, or all our defense guys do, is actually assemble. This emerges from a production network. This is the result of a production network. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that we now sit and we get a company that makes something that looks like this. That's not really interesting because this will be obsolete anyway. But if we have the network from which this emerges, then we will never be obsolete. We'll just be at the edge of the technology curve, right? Understands, for example, the importance of what these cameras do. This thing without this camera, ineffective as a weapon of war.